Hey there! In this video I'm gonna talk about the track Zero Dark 100 from the PinOut soundtrack. So PinOut was a mobile game by Mediocre that came out in 2016, and it featured a synthwave soundtrack that I made together with vocalist Susanna Lundgren. And the soundtrack has gotten a couple of different releases. At first, for the release party, we made a cassette tape that I copied off myself with the help of an intern that I had at the time. And then we made some vinyl records ourselves, me and the guys at Mediocre. And then a couple years later, I Am 8-Bit released a double album with PinOut soundtrack and the Smash It soundtrack. And the game itself is an endless pinball game, which was a really fun concept to work with. And the style of the game is very inspired by 80s aesthetics in general and sort of synthwave aesthetics specifically. And today I'm going to show you a bit of the track Zero Dark 100 and how it was made. And this is the session right here. Perhaps I could start with the drums. There's not a lot to say since the drums are actually a loop that I got from somewhere and just cut up a bit to get that robotic punchy feeling. I cut out a bunch of the hi-hat sounds in between. And then there's a thing happening over here that I call chimes, which is actually a synth, but it kind of falls into the percussion part of the song, according to me. This is just the song is in D minor, so this is just a sort of a D minor add 9th chord without the 5th. It's just these 3 notes over and over again, F, E, and D. And really fast triplets, like 16th note triplets. And then over here there is some 707 toms. And the drums overall have this really aggressive gated sound that in this case is it's an IR impulse response preset called Room Reverse. It sort of sounds like a gated reverb, but even more aggressive. It's pretty harsh sounding by itself, actually. I think I chose it just because I needed something that sort of cut through the mix. The thing that might be cool to look at, and the thing that's sort of specific about this track, is the sort of colonel response between this synth bass down here and the electric bass up here. The electric bass is something that I played on my Fender Jazz Bass, and I put a ton of effects on it. So without all the effects, it would sound like this. Which makes it sound like this old Breeders song from the 90s. And the synth bass down here, it's just this riff. And without the effects, it sounds pretty bland. Use some distortion to make it stick, and then some sidechain compression on it. And then once the vocals come in, I mute this sort of bass riff, both the synth one and the electric bass, to leave some room for the vocals, and then I let it come back again in the pauses of the vocals, so that the whole thing sounds like this. Amber sunset. And if I turn these on again, it'll be quite messy, and you'll have a hard time hearing the vocals properly. Amber sunset. So moving on with the bass. So in this part of the song, I introduce two bass sounds that play in unison. This short, snappy one, and this distorted, sort of legato sounding one. And then we move on to arpeggios. Here's one that is from an alchemy patch, and there's two versions of it that are slightly differently mixed. Just wanted this one to stand out some more. It's even more MIDI, as in mid-range E. And then there's sort of the main arpeggio of the song down here. Which starts playing more of a riff in this second part rather than a proper arpeggio. Moving on to the vocals. So this is Susanna's main vocal here.
Amber sunset.
Pretty heavily distorted with this.
This horizon
And this one
dissolves.
And this is what it sounds like clean. And also in this part, this harmony is introduced, which is really beautiful, I think. She sings it in such a high pitch. I haven't done anything at all with it other than I used the sample delay to sort of spread it out a bit towards the sides. But together they sound like this.
Shards of daylight. Grains of sound waves escape.
And then I make it come closer and with a more dry sound here on the word escape.
Escape.
And the thing I did with the vocals on this one, the idea that I had was to have really different vocal treatments in the different parts of the song. So this first part, it's distorted, and then in this second part, it's auto-tuned with some vocoder choir under that. And then in this last part, Susanna recorded like a choir of herself. And the main vocals over here in this last part are more belted out further away from the mic. But let's start with the second part, the more robotic part, sort of with a combination of auto-tune and a vocoder.
Trust in me. Time will run out soon.
And I did some automating on the auto-tune here just to get it super unnatural so that I bypass a lot of notes in certain parts.
Have no fear. No one will notice.
So in certain parts I let it bypass a few notes so that the vocals don't sort of slide over those notes but are forced directly into the main note. So this part of the song is perhaps a bit harmonically interesting in that it has a tritone. The whole phrase sort of ends on a tritone. If you watch the piano here on the left, the melody goes like this. And the chords go like this. The bass notes, rather. And this is the tritone interval. It's sort of dissonant, a dissonant way of ending a phrase, anyway. It kind of wants to resolve either to or to. But the next phrase goes like this. so it's really resolved in the second phrase. But it's kind of impressive that Susanna can sing that phrase, because it's quite hard to sing this note on top of this chord in a nice way, but she totally kills it. Right, then the second verse, it has sort of a natural sounding vocal with, well, some reverb and stuff. And this is also where we go into the part where I introduce like a stutter effect on just one certain vocal, where the vocal says slowing down or something like that. We'll get to it over here. There's a harmony down here. Yeah, slowing you down. That's what it is. And then over here the vocals are more, she sings it a lot louder, further away from the mic. And then there's this whole little choir down here, which also includes the main melody but doubled, just to get it a bit fatter sounding. And then there's this little, very basic choir down here. I think it's a mellotron sound or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about it. Thanks for watching.